Welcome to another episode of Meet the CEOs. I'm your host, Daniel Wikberg, CEO and founder of Upsales. In this episode, we have JR Butler, the CEO and founder of Shift Group, with us. With a background in B2B sales, JR previously worked as a Chief Revenue Officer at The Pillar. Before that, he worked at Terminomic and played a crucial role in boosting its customer base from 200 to 3,000 and growing the team from under 50 to 650 employees. So welcome, JR, and thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Awesome. So you launched Shift Group only 18 months ago, and you're now over $2.5 million in revenue. Can you tell us what Shift Group does and where the idea came from?
Sure. It's pretty simple concept and model. We help former college, professional, and Olympic athletes, as well as military veterans, break into sales careers. So essentially what our candidates do is we meet them through either organically or through partnerships with athletic and veteran organizations. We've built a curriculum where they can come in and they can do some discovery on themselves, some self-discovery, some career discovery, and then some career upskilling. They essentially, pick a lane in terms of what sales career they want to do. Most of our candidates today are doing technology sales. And then we have and it's free for those folks, for athletes and veterans. And then the way we make money is we partner with over 100 companies across the world who hire kind of entry-level salespeople from us through our portal where they find our candidates. The impetus for the company is my own experience and 2 points in my life. I was an elite athlete for the first 23, 24 years of my life, played ice hockey. And when I retired, I really struggled with the transition. One thing that I think is pretty evident across these types of folks like me is athletics becomes a huge part of your identity, a huge part of your personality, a huge part of your purpose. And when you lose it, it's really, really hard. And I've got family that's gone through it on the military side, and it was a very similar experience for them. However, these people, because of what they do in their, first part of their life, they develop certain intangible characteristics and personality traits and mindsets that make them really well suited for sales. And that's what happened to me. I kind of tripped and fell into it. So I started Shift Group because I wish it existed when I was going through that process, that transition process. I also spent, like you said at the beginning, I spent about 15, 16 years in sales and sales leadership. So I know how hard it is to hire entry-level salespeople. Entry-level sales is very, it's a hard kind of start to a great career, right? You get kicked in the teeth a lot. You got to be able to fight through adversity. And it's hard to interview for the characteristics that are kind of intangibles, right? Being a coachable person, having a growth mindset, being gritty, like the things that we hear all the time. So the second reason I started Shift Group is because, again, I wish it existed when I was hiring salespeople. So I always tell people I really started the company for myself, just myself at 2 points in my life. One when I was transitioning and one when I was building sales teams. So I know our audience and our customer base really, really well because it's me.
All right. So, looking back in this past 1.5 year, are there any defining moments for starting the business?
Yeah. So when we first started, right, if you remember back to kind of February, beginning of 2022, this was before the market corrected, interest rates were still low.
Right.
Venture funding was easy to come by. Every company was focused on growth at all costs, right? And then we kind of hit a buzzsaw in really 3 months into the business starting, where we only had about 30 customers at the time. We lost half of them, meaning when I say we lost them, they all said, hey, we're not going to hire anymore. In a lot of cases, they had let go of our contacts within the organization because a lot of these companies cut their talent teams. So I remember very vividly sitting in my office and being like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Right. And you know, it was good though. Right. I think adversity makes you better. So we went from focusing on like really large organizations that hired a lot of salespeople, and we pivoted and we tried to focus on earlier stage companies that were well funded and still focused on growth. And that's kind of what helped us get through really the last, 15 months, because the last 15 months has been more of a downturn than a growth cycle. So I think, the fact that we've had success in the market we've had makes me feel really good about the future of the company.
Was it difficult to find this? When you did the pivot to find this new target group of customers?
It was, and we had to get creative. Fortunately, because of the roles that I've had prior to starting the company, I had built a pretty good network in the venture community, and that's where we focused, right? So we, instead of just focusing on, let's call these companies and get meetings, we focused on going after venture firms that had portfolio companies. And that's kind of what got us through, especially those first few months during the downturn. We were able to identify good partnerships where we could do kind of, leverage points, one-to-many relationships where, we build trust with one person and that gets us access to multiple customers. So that was kind of what got us through, I think, that initial downturn.
Right. I love these stories. You have so many examples of, great companies who actually became great because of just running into the wall early.
Exactly. Downturns always breed really good companies. We saw it in 2008. I think we're going to see it now in 2022 and 2023.
So, about raising money or not raising money, I have this theory that, I run a bootstrap company, and I think bootstrap companies build a better foundation. As you can't really throw money at problems, and you need to come up with which you touched upon, like creative solutions instead. Is that your view as well? And why did you choose this like bootstrapped approach?
Because a couple different reasons. I think I've worked for investors like my whole career, right? So I know what you get. You don't just get money; you get a lot of opinions, and you get a lot of a lot of cooks in the kitchen, right? I think I can build a profitable, sustainable business without getting someone else's opinion or cash. And I also think, generally, and this, it forces you to focus on the fundamentals of business, which is profitability, right? I think every time we go through a growth cycle, people forget that the point of running a company is to make money. But when you're bootstrapped, you don't forget that. Like, exactly. you've gotta get payroll. You've gotta, have cash to try to forward invest as best you can. And I think it just creates a more efficient model when you're starting with your own cash and your own, focus on driving revenue, versus, sitting on a pile of money. It can create bad habits. So we don't have a lot of bad habits now. So if we wanted to go raise money, we're in a good position to do so.
Right. So, we talked about this, but I think most companies I talk to, they struggle to find the right people for their sales force. So what specific things do you think like athletes and veterans have to make them great salespeople?
Yeah. So it's I focus on kind of two areas, right? The intangibles I think are easy to talk about. Athletes and veterans have a proven track record of resiliency, teamwork, which, people understand that are in sales. Sales is a team sport. You've got to be able to work with a lot of different personalities and be able to bring people together. I think a growth mindset is really important, right? Athletes and veterans, when they start in their sport or in service, they're not good at a lot of the stuff that they have to do. They have to get better, right? And I think sales is also a performance-based profession, just like military, just like athletics. So they're used to getting better at something, training and practicing and all those things. And then I also think about coachability, right? Because sales, you have leadership, and you're typically working with people with a little more experience with you, and you're constantly trying to refine and master. So being able to take feedback constructively and use it to get better and not take it personally, maintain your confidence. So those are kind of when I think about the intangibles. I also think, one thing that people don't talk about is as an athlete and a veteran, you get access to really good leadership. Like, coaches and leaders in the military are typically, really focused on good leadership. So you know what that looks like, what that feels like. And then there's like this core thing that we talk about, which is being dialed in, right? When I say, are you dialed in to an athlete or a soldier, they know what I mean, right? They have a purpose. It's easy to get passionate about becoming excellent at the things that help them achieve that purpose. And it's easy to practice because they're passionate about achieving that purpose. So these people know what it means to be dialed in, and we help them get dialed in on a new thing, right? On sales and everything that comes with. And I think it's unique. I think anybody can get dialed in on something, but I think with athletes and veterans, they already have the muscles to do that, right? It's our job to show them why this is a great profession to focus on. Because if we can get them bought into the profession, we already know they're going to do everything it takes to be great at the profession. So those are kind of why we focus really just specifically on this part of the population, which is a fairly smaller part of the population, but a very unique part of the population.
Right. So, I mean, on the flip side, are there any like common challenges when looking to hire these kind of candidates?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? Like if like I look at our candidate pool, it's kind of split between like really early stage career people, younger people getting out of the military or getting right out of college sports. Those are pretty straightforward conversations. Where it gets a little tougher, I think, is we have folks that spend a lot of time in those two professions, right? Meaning like, somebody who played professional sports after college for a decade, or somebody who served in the military for 10 to 20 years. The challenge there, and we can pretty much pick it up early on in a conversation, is, and I use this analogy all the time, right? We say it to our veterans. We're like, well, we have, if LeBron James joined the Navy SEALs, would you bring him out on a mission on day one because he was one of the best basketball players in the world? No, of course you wouldn't. He'd have to start from the beginning and go through the same training you did to get where you are. And the opposite works too. If you say to a professional hockey player, hey, you got this 22-year Navy SEAL who's deployed 35 times. Are you going to put him on the ice because of how elite he was as a Navy SEAL? Of course you're not. He's got to practice and he's got to get good enough. So we have to have kind of hard conversations with people that have had an immense amount of success in something that they've spent a long part of their life doing, and help them understand that this is new, this is different, and they've got to start from the beginning. And if they can't go into something with a beginner's mindset, then maybe sales isn't for them, because there's really no skipping steps in sales. You've got to kind of start at the beginning and learn the fundamentals before you can get like a high paying, lucrative sales job, which is the goal, but you got to earn it, right? You didn't earn it because of what you did in sports. You didn't earn it because of what you did in service. You definitely are going to be successful, and you're going to be successful faster, in our opinion. That's why we started the company. But having those folks take a step back is a challenge that we run into every single day.
Okay. And I mean, how do you test for that? How do you, any thoughts on like testing like the humility in a candidate?
It's easier than you would think, because it doesn't matter when a candidate comes to us. It doesn't matter if they're right out of college and a Division III backup quarterback, or they're a 10-year NFL player. They all have to go through the same curriculum. And if they're not willing to do that, then that's pretty much proof point number one that they don't have the humility to approach this from the beginning, right? So we, by building a curriculum that's fairly hard to get through, it could take anywhere from 25 to 40 hours of work. Even though it's free, you'd be shocked how many people aren't willing to do that. And if you're not willing to do that, then we're not willing to put you in front of one of our customers that's going to hire you. So that's kind of our test is, and hopefully that continues to play because otherwise we'd have to charge people, right? So that's our quality assurance, is that they have to go through the same programming that everybody does.
All right. So you basically have this kind of sales introduction crash course, which you have the candidates do then.
Exactly. They can do the career discovery around multiple sales domains. And then once they pick their domain, right, if they want to do technology sales, then they have to go through another section where they learn what we consider kind of the 6 or 7 foundational skills to be successful in that career. They have to get trained on them. They have to do assignments in them. We record those assignments at the end. That's how companies hire from us. They actually watch our candidates on tape doing things like cold calling, doing things like presenting account research, right? So it's not easy by any means, but we're very confident, and the data tells us that these people are they're gonna stick. They're not gonna quit, and they're gonna ramp faster, and they're gonna be more productive when they get in the seat because of the work we're doing with them initially.
Okay, that's impressive. All right, so at Turbotronic, you scaled from less than 50 to more than 600 employees. So how did you manage to keep the performance and the team on track during such an aggressive scale up?
Well, I think anybody that was in that environment, we had high attrition, right? We had a pretty short leash. Like if we didn't feel like somebody was going to be successful, we made that decision pretty early on. It was high turnover, high attrition. Again, one of the reasons I started the company is because hiring is really hard. So if you have that type of culture, finding people that are going to fit there, sometimes in the old world, when all you have is a resume and 3 or 4 interviews, you got to kind of take a bet on people. And for us, it was about like maintaining that performance culture. And if we had a saying like it's no breath is better than bad breath, right? As soon as we knew somebody wasn't a fit, we tried to move them out of the business as quickly as possible. And it was painful, but I think it's something you have to do. You can't let people stick around that don't match the values of the organization. And that's kind of how we were able to maintain that growth and success until we exited, like just maintaining that high expectations, high standards.
Right. It never gets easy, right?
No, it's never easy. Never easy.
So, I mean, you worked with like hiring and training salespeople for more than 10 years. Is there any game-changing insight you wish you would have found earlier?
Yeah, I think the biggest indicator of a salesperson being successful is their level of curiosity, right? And that's hard. That's really hard to interview for. It's really hard to test for. I think it comes down to how somebody comes into an interview process, especially for early career people, right? Like, because this is maybe their first foray into corporate America. But if somebody comes in and they're asking great questions and it's clear that they're trying to understand, it doesn't matter if they don't understand, right? Especially in some of these, Turbonomic was a very complex technology. We sold to the highest levels of IT. We touched every single IT department and every level of the IT stack, from the application all the way to the spinning disk of storage. And no 24, 25-year-old knows what any of that stuff is. So when they come in, the type of questions they're asking, the type of research they're showing you that they did is a really good indicator. Like, okay, this person has natural curiosity. And if you go into a sales career with that natural curiosity, you're going to be successful because you're going to go into customer meetings with that same curiosity, really trying to understand what are they doing, how is it impacting their world today, and where do they want to get to, and how can you help them get there? I wish I understood that when I was, 23, 24. I think I have a natural level of curiosity. It's why I was successful, but I wasn't self-aware of that until probably my early 30s.
Okay. So, I mean, in an interview, how do you tell if you manage to find a person who's kind of elite of the elites, like someone willing to really push and drive the standard forward.
Yeah.
And then raise the bar.
Yeah. I think there's on the front end, it's like great questions, great preparation, right? Like that's kind of table stakes for a good interview. And then I think on the back end, somebody that can give examples and tell stories about, and I'm speaking specifically about entry-level sales, that can tell stories and give examples of those intangible characteristics I talked about. They can give me an example of a weakness they turned into a strength. They can give me an example when they were a great teammate. They can give me an example where they took coaching and used it to get better, right? Like, so it's all about, it's one thing for somebody to say, I'm coachable. It's a different level when somebody says they're coachable and gives you an example, and then, kind of like A plus answer is those two things, plus they can explain why coachability is important in the role that they're interviewing for, right? So somebody who can tie all those things together, and they can do that for multiple intangible characteristics that you're looking for. They can tie it to the values that you're publicly kind of putting out there as a business. That's somebody who has a very, very high chance of success in your organization.
Right. So in your opinion, what do you think are like the most common mistakes that companies do when coaching salespeople?
Yeah, I think, generally you want to see your sales leaders, right? And they do this in the military, and I don't think we do a good job of it in sales. I think sometimes you want your coach to be like highly proficient tactically and technically, right? Like the people who get leadership roles in like special operations, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Army Rangers, they have great leadership qualities, but they are also very proficient and very tactical in the actual job that they're leading people for. So I do think you have to strike the balance when you hire leadership where they have the desire to lead people, right? Because that's a different job than an individual contributor. They have the personality traits to be leaders. They also need to be able to explain to somebody how to do something, right? We see it in coaching. We see it in leadership in the military. We need to see more of it in sales, right? It can't just be somebody who's good at looking at a CRM and digging into a forecast. They have to be able to show somebody this, what I'm asking you to do, this is how you do it. Watch me do it, right? And I think we've lost that a little bit in the sales leadership world because of what happened the 7 or 8 years prior. A lot of people moved up that didn't have the fundamentals because of the environment they were in. It's not their fault. They didn't have to have the fundamentals to be successful. So now you've got people who sold in a environment where they didn't need the fundamentals, leading sales teams who need the fundamentals right now more than ever because of how hard the environment is to sell it. And I think that's a gap that companies need to pay attention to. If you don't have a leader that can do what they're telling their people to do, you're going to struggle, right? So you've got to identify those leaders that have, and I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard. It is really hard. It's supposed to, but like we said, it's supposed to be hard. If you want to grow your business and you want to have a successful, profitable, sustainable company, you've got to make the right decision on leadership. And if you don't have the right leaders, you need to make the hard decisions quickly. And I think that a lot of companies are making that mistake right now. They're keeping bad breath around because they're scared about having no breath. And I think that's a huge mistake. And we're seeing it at companies all the time. And we'll walk away from a customer if we don't have confidence in their leaders to be the right leaders for our people. We're not going to work with them. So we try to identify that for our people because they're typically too inexperienced to ask those right questions.
Right. That's a very good point. So wrapping up, if someone would take over your company tomorrow, what do you think would be the first thing they'd change?
The first thing that would change, I think, if I couldn't choose the person, I think we built a really good culture around our core values of accountability, coachability, and authenticity, right? And I think that's what's resonated with the market for us is that we are who we are. We're very authentic. I would be concerned about, somebody taking over and not, staying true to what we believe, and not kind of, having that brand out there. And I think generally, that accountability piece is so important when you're building a company. Everybody needs to know what their job is, and everybody needs to do their job, right? Not to steal from, Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, but that's kind of the culture we built. And any new leader that would come in here, that would be my biggest concern, is that they don't like revolve the world around those 3 core values for us. That's really important for us to be successful in the long term.
Right. So what's stopping you from growing even faster? What are kind of the obstacles?
I think honestly, it's like it's us versus us, right? Like any business, we have competition, but nobody's really doing what we're doing. So our ability to execute is 100% up to us. The growth opportunity for us is to move out of technology, right? And to have a platform that an athlete or a veteran can come into and get really any high ticket, lucrative sales career. And I was able to build the training that we built for technology because I spent 16 years in the business. I ran teams for most of those years. I know what good looks like. I know what skills they need. So that was easy. I never sold medical devices. I've never sold drugs to doctors as a pharmaceutical rep. I've never sold employee benefits or, ETFs or, I've never done financial planning. So like, if we want to grow our business into those industries, then we're going to need to bring in smart people that have been through it like I was in tech to help us to really partner with us, and bringing in people means monies, right? So I think, a capital raise would be helpful. We got to pick the right people to give us money and make sure that they're aligned with our vision and our core values. But that's the biggest thing holding us back is that expansion into other industries right now.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it seems like you have a very exciting future to look forward to with your business.
Very, very exciting. Yep. We actually, so we're moving away from a services-based business, right? Staffing and recruiting, into a software company. We built a platform, and we're charging a subscription now. And we just got our first few subscription customers in the last 2 weeks, which is really exciting. I think anybody who knew me in college and even after, it would be very surprised to hear that I started a software company. I didn't even own a computer until I started in my first tech sales job. So it's a very exciting time, and I'm very, very excited about the future.
All right. So thanks a lot for joining us today and sharing your story.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.